First Light has always made the world's best base layers. They are warm, breathable, silent, and odor resistant. But the women's fit and the gear weren't meeting our demands, so we went back to the beginning and rebuilt everything. Re-engineering the gear with the most dedicated female hunters in mind, First Light modernized the fit and added more sizes, colors, and camo patterns. I personally have been testing the women's gear over the last couple of years, from the mountains in Idaho to the plains in Nebraska, and I feel like the fit especially has landed in a much better spot. It's more true to size. It's not as tight and binding in certain areas like a lot of women's fit. All of the pieces, to me, got an all-around upgrade. It's awesome to see. So for yourself or as a gift this Mother's Day, pick up First Light's new women's merino wool and get free shipping on all orders containing women's gear. Available now at FIRSTLITE.com.
My name is Clay Newcomb, and this is a production of the Bear Grease podcast called the Bear Grease Render, where we render down, dive deeper, and look behind the scenes of the actual Bear Grease podcast. Presented by FHF Gear, American-made, purpose-built hunting and fishing gear that's designed to be as rugged as the places we explore.
Bear, pick up that dog. Just let Bear have it.
I don't think she's gonna let me have it.
She just ducked her head.
She just
Tell us about your dog, Bear.
This is Osage. I'm calling her Sage. She's a tree and feist. I got her yesterday.
So this little dog is probably like 10 pounds, 9 weeks old. But It's a small dog.
Yep.
Max weight might be a 28 to 30 pound dog.
But he said that she's gonna be between 20 and 30 pounds, about like Tess and Tim.
So what do you plan to do with this feist, Bear?
Squirrel hunt.
Squirrel hunt.
Yep.
How are you going to train it?
Well, I'm gonna let her run loose.
This is a test.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Gonna let her just run
There
loose.
is a right and wrong answer.
Don't think for a minute that I don't know what you should be doing. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna let her run loose for the first 6 months, just out in the yard where there's squirrels. And then I'll just start taking her out in the woods with Tess and Tim and kind of trying to hone in her instinct to specifically squirrels.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, I think, she'll naturally want to go after stuff.
Man, Anthony, we've been incredibly surprised with these feists. These two that we have out here are the first two that we've had. And Tim, one of the ones out there, is like probably the smartest dog I've owned. In terms of just human relatability and intelligence, so they're fun little dogs.
Are they those that just have to be doing something all the time? They have to be engaged all the time.
Oh, they're high energy.
Yeah,
high energy.
Like that.
Tim is middle-aged right now. He's
coming on 5 years old.
Yeah, and he's he's getting a little bit grumpy, a little bit older. I mean, you can tell he's kind of irritated with life a lot. And this edition has not been, he's not impressed. He's not mean, but he's definitely
not improved his quality of life.
And he just kind of like stares at it when it comes near it. He kind of
like, what is this about? Is this going to last?
Yeah.
How long?
Well, it's a good name, Osage. I like it. I like it, especially with the new bow building stuff you've been doing.
Yep,
it's a natural name. That's good. Well, welcome to the Bear Grease Render. I'm very excited today. We've got Josh Spillmaker with us. Josh's wife, Christy, with us.
Hello.
Christy. Christy's like the commentator you bring in for like real, like when you need the heat.
Yep.
Oh,
when you need like the interrogation.
I got it.
Christy's there. Bear John Newcomb's here. Good to see you, Bear.
Yep.
Dr. Misty Newcomb's here. Guest of honor, Anthony Ballard, who is the Bear. What's your official title down in Mississippi?
Black Bear Program Leader.
Black Bear Program Leader for the Mississippi Department of
Wildlife and Fisheries, yeah.
Wildlife
Fisheries and Parks, MDWFP.
That's a mouthful.
Wow. They couldn't think of anything else to add to it. I guess they stopped there.
Yeah. Well, man, it's so Anthony and I have a day of history together. I was down in Mississippi back in early March, and went on a bear den study with him down in Mississippi.
Yep.
So we're going to talk a ton about Mississippi bears later.
Okay.
But first, I just got back from the live tour.
He just flew in, and boy, are his arms tired.
Yeah. From all the music playing, man. So Josh and Christy, y'all came to the Anaheim show,
We did.
which not to.
Oh, careful now.
I know you didn't like it, right?
Well, of all the shows,
Yeah.
that was the
No offense,
smallest
Anaheim
crowd.
folks.
It was the smallest crowd, and the venue was kind of like, to me, it was like a cafeteria. I felt like I was playing in like a cafeteria.
Like a school cafeteria.
The cafetorium,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the elementary, it's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
cafeteria
Like,
and an
I thought
auditorium.
it was like people had those little separated plates, and they were like janitors walking around, like taking
No,
the
there
plates.
wasn't.
No, it was a great venue. It was like a nice venue, but it was modern. Probably 7 of 10 venues that we went to were these like old
Like
theaters. The
historic.
Oh,
last
that's
one we
fun.
played in Tacoma 2 nights ago was a theater that had been built in 1915.
Oh, wow.
Just ornate. It looked like, I don't even know how to describe it, but you know, the architectural style of that time for these theaters. And they were built, the theater held 1,200 people, but it was like super compact. Balcony was like right on the stage, and they had these little boxes, you know, right here. And I roasted some of those guys. I'll tell you about
Did
that.
you?
But most of the theaters were like that. The one that you got, so Josh Christie came to Anaheim, California. Yeah, Josh played the mandolin with
did.
Phil and I.
I did. It was great.
Yeah, and so did y'all have a good time?
Wild response.
Oh
I
man,
mean,
I had so much fun. I don't, we get to go to like the oh goodness, what is it when we have it here? The Black Bear Bonanza. It's just fun to get to spend a day with like-minded people. You know,
Big bear hunters like you.
yeah, like me, big bear hunters like me. No, I mean, I just love it, and I think I was entertained from start to finish. The music was great, lots of fun, and then just the stories and the way the whole team talked and told stories. I just thought it went by really fast.
I love the people too because you're in Anaheim, California, which is basically L.A. I hope I'm not offending anybody from Anaheim, but it's basically L.A.
Greater
and
LA.
and it's you don't expect that there's going to be people who are the demographic of what Meat Eater is reaching out to, but I mean, seeing some of the folks that were there, I mean, guys that you would not expect to be into deer hunting. I mean, it was awesome, man. It was really, really, really cool. The response that people had, people doing their best owl hoots.
Yeah.
it was no offense, but it was pretty rough.
Yeah.
It was pretty rough.
Anthony, you'd be proud of your state. I should be a representative. I should be on the marketing team for Mississippi State, whatever.
There you go.
Because everywhere I went, we had an owl hooting contest. We gave away a genuine coonskin hat at each one. It got stronger the more I did it. Like I told it the story more, but I said I would hoot for the people, and I would say, okay, these are the things I'm looking for in a hoot: cadence, natural tone, volume, and trill at the end.
Right.
And I said, I'm going to hoot for you just to kind of give you something to go off of. And I said, if this contest were going on in Mississippi, and I was in a room of, 800 people, and I said, stand up if you want to owl hoot, and obviously you would only stand up if you thought you had a chance. I told them, I wouldn't stand up in Mississippi.
Oh.
It is, yeah.
Are you a barred owl hooter?
Yeah, I got asked to when we did the den check, actually.
Oh yeah,
I can't remember if it
asked
was you or
Yeah. We
It's Clay's
heard
thing.
one.
And how was it, Clay?
It was pretty good.
Was solid.
He's no Lake Pickle, but
Look, I'll
but-
tell you this: mine is just good enough not to get ruthlessly ridiculed by the people that I work and hunt with.
Yeah.
It's barely over the threshold. Like
Okay.
there are some very convincing owl hooters in Mississippi.
Wow.
Yeah. So the owl hooting was a lot of fun. Oh, let me tell you about my best. So as the live tour went on, I didn't realize it, but I have a great skill at roasting people for their owl hooting.
So as the live tour went on, he got increasingly
Oh
mean.
yeah, I got increasingly emboldened, and by the team mainly. And No, there was the final night in Tacoma. There was there's these people that are in the balconies. I hope this guy's listening because it really wasn't personal. I was gonna do if he'd have been the best owl hooter in the room, I would have done this to him. But early on in the deal, I asked the people from the stage, like, "Hey, how'd y'all get those fancy seats up there?" And one of the guys did his fingers like this, his index finger and his pointer finger and his thumb like money. Like he paid for these seats. And I was like, oh, I see what's going on. When we did the owl hooting, one of those guys, not that guy, but a guy by him, stood up to owl hoot. And I was like, oh, okay, go ahead. Called on him and he owl hoots. And like I said, bro, you may have enough money to buy a really good seat, but you ain't got enough money to buy a chance at coming down here because that was terrible. Or, said something like that. It wasn't quite that hard. And everybody just like erupted, but I totally roasted him. Sorry, buddy. If you're out there, I didn't really mean it. You just happened to be the guy. So the owl hooting was a ton of fun.
Some person out there is with a complex of Clay just being like, oh, that's cute. Go ahead and sit down. Everyone else keeps standing.
Yeah. As the first night that I actually like roasted some people, I came back to the team and I was like, man, I kind of felt bad. I hope those people their feelings aren't hurt, like being publicly humiliated. And they were like, keep doing it.
Keep doing it. So don't stop.
So in the VIP line beforehand, when I would meet really nice people that I liked, I would be like, hey, are you going to owl hoot? And a couple of them would be like, yeah, I was thinking about it. I was like, I'm probably going to be real mean to you. Just be ready. I
don't mean it.
But honestly, though, I mean, like if you're gonna stand up, you put yourself out there. I mean,
you got to be ready for it.
That's right. You're gonna open yourself up a little bit.
People got the vibe, and it wasn't mean. It was a lot of fun. It was a ton of fun,
especially for Clay. Not as much for the others. On average, it was very fun.
Anyone on stage was having a great time.
By the end of the tour, Ryan Callahan just jumped up and was like right beside me, being like, he would be like, sit down.
You're fired. You're fired.
Yeah, it was great. But probably the best thing that happened on the entire live tour was I was approached by a professional farrier.
Oh, on tour.
In Tacoma, Washington.
Okay.
And he comes up to me and he says, Clay, I'm a professional farrier, been a farrier for 25 years. And he said, it's come to my attention that how much public ridicule that you get.
I thought it was going to be like, you need help.
By farriers when you show your mule trimming stuff online. And he said, now, Clay, I'm really critical of farriers and I have some input for you. And I was like, here we go.
Yeah.
Clay's turn to get roasted.
Yeah, Clay's turn to get roasted. Clay's turn to get roasted. And he said, now, I'm not just saying this because I'm standing here looking at you. I mean, a convincing little preamble that he was about to give it to me straight. And he said, mark this down, all of you people out there. He said, your methods are unconventional, but you actually do a really good job of trimming mule feet.
Oh. Okay.
And so the unconventional methods was a little bit of a you're not doing it exactly right. But the end product.
So if you were to weigh your skill between being a farrier or operating a dozer.
That's what I was about to say.
Where would you feel like the strength would lie?
Equal.
It actually
unconventional method.
I was going to say
the job done.
Clay's been home less than 24 hours. I've heard that twice now.
Well,
I've already heard that story twice. It's like the bulldozer. He doesn't know what kind of monster he's unleashed.
The guy, he said, Clay, I have a gift for you. And they wouldn't let him bring it in the theater. These theaters, they're like frisking people, like wanding them, making sure they don't have guns and stuff. And people brought guns to the shows.
When you come in the back door.
Yeah. And
not when you come in the back door.
So he was like, I got some stuff I want to give you. And I was like, meet me at the bus after the tour. And so we met out and he gave me 2 hoof knives, a very nice set of refurbished professional nippers.
Okay.
He was pretty disappointed with my nippers.
Okay.
So he gave me some nippers and then he gave me a brand new rasp. So
Oh,
Look
man.
at that
I
rasp.
forbade Bear Newcomb from ever touching that rasp.
And Bear Newcomb.
I don't know what it is about Bear, but if there's a rasp around, the boy is just like. So Bear, stay away from my rasp, okay?
Well, hey, I just bought a new one for making bows, so you can stay away from that one too.
Whoa, there we go. Territory.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was probably the best thing that happened on the live tour.
It was, you got some affirmation of your.
Aside from launching my career as a traveling musician, I mean, after like a week, I felt like Merle Haggard. I mean, I woke up and I thought about the music. Just the passion overtook me.
Wow.
Yeah, I just woke up. I was Merle Haggard on that tour. So anyway, I'm waiting for the calls to come in. You know,
Show opener, Clay Newcomb.
I thought the music was great.
Oh, it was fun.
I mean, not just because I was playing with you when I was there,
Well,
but I thought the music was great.
we ended up playing with some real professional musicians.
Oh,
Who oddly, so it's the band Typhoon. So Steve likes the band Typhoon, which I'd never heard of them. They're from Portland.
okay.
Oh, I got lots of stories. And Steve messaged them like the day of the show and was like, "Hey, do y'all want to come play music with Clay and Phil and Marco?" And they were able.
Did Marco start playing with you?
Yeah, Marco started playing the drum.
I love it.
And so anyway, these professional musicians
Shout out
came,
to Marco.
and they practiced one time. We played through the song 2 times, and then they got on stage with us. And word on the street, she didn't say it to my face, but
Yeah.
I don't blame her. I don't blame her at all. I kind of so the fiddle player, wonderful, very sweet lady, incredible musician. She was supposed to. I was supposed to kind of like lead, and there's some like chord changes,
Right.
kind of like freestyle, and she's gonna fiddle, and I messed her up.
Oh, no.
I messed her up. So her part, like,
Didn't shine quite the way it should.
She told Shannon, if you're listening to this, don't be embarrassed. This is great. I loved what you said. She told Steve that literally the same day as the Farrier, she said, "Clay's a little hard to follow. His
His methods are unconventional."
Literally, because I told that to Steve Ranella about my mule trimming, and he said, "She said the same thing about your music."
Seems to be a trend emerging.
Yeah.
There needs to be a T-shirt like unconventional but effective.
Exactly. That's good. That's good.
Exactly. Yeah.
I can echo that. Having played with Clay a lot, I can echo. He's unconventional.
You know what? Me and Merle may have been a little unconventional.
Yeah.
You and Merle.
Yeah.
First Light has always made the world's best base layers. They're warm, breathable, silent, and odor resistant. But the women's fit and the gear weren't meeting our demands, so we went back to the beginning and rebuilt everything. Re-engineering the gear with the most dedicated female hunters in mind, First Light modernized the fit and added more sizes, colors, and camo patterns. I personally have been testing the women's gear over the last couple of years, from the mountains in Idaho to the plains in Nebraska, and I feel like the fit especially has landed in a much better spot. It's more true to size. It's not as tight and binding in certain areas like a lot of women's fit. All of the pieces, to me, got an all-around upgrade. It's awesome to see. So for yourself or as a gift this Mother's Day, pick up First Light's new women's merino wool and get free shipping on all orders containing women's gear. Available now at FIRSTLITE.com.
Okay, enough about the live tour. You have a new website.
I have a new
Dr. Newcomb?
website. Yes.
TheNewcombFarm.com.
TheNewcombFarm.com.
I was just stumbling around on the internet yesterday
Just
and
on the
came across
interwebs,
it.
and you just came across it?
Yeah.
What are the chances?
Yeah, what are the chances?
Yeah. So what is your website about?
Well, so for a long time, we've had this Instagram that was just sort of an overflow of like the hobbies that I have, gardening, cooking, things like that. But that's not, a lot of people know me from that Instagram page, and there's like a whole lot of Misty that's not included in there. In fact, I would say that Instagram page got really popular while I was writing my dissertation because it was a welcome way to
Distraction.
procrastinate. Yeah, from writing the dissertation. So it was probably really hopping during that time. But over the last couple of months, I graduated about a year ago now. And finished school, and I've had a little more time to do some of the things that I love. And
Getting your PhD, not high school.
Yeah, no, I did not graduate high school a year ago.
You did graduate high school.
I did graduate high school, but I graduated college with a PhD a year ago. And so since that time, I've been able to do like writing for pleasure, or reading for pleasure instead of just on assignment, and that has
when you coon hunt and you're not in a competition hunt, they call it pleasure hunting.
Okay, yeah, so I'm pleasure writing. Yeah, got it. And so anyway, so I get asked questions all the time. I've been writing, having a lot of fun with that, and decided to put together some of like all of these things. This is Misty Unfiltered.
Oh wow,
I like it.
Sketchy. Yeah.
Social commentary. So
there's like three parts of it. There's perspectives. That's more like social commentary. Those are like deep dives. It's not something you read on a weeknight. It's something you like on the weekend when you've got some time. They're 10 to 15 minute reads. Yeah. They're deep dives into research on different topics that I think impact families, which is the main thing that I've spent my life doing.
What are the three things that are on the website?
That's the first one.
Family, home, career.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
would you say it's geared more towards women?
I think that women, I mean,
we don't want to put it in a box.
I wouldn't say that. Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I think if you're it's geared towards, I would say it's geared more towards people raising a family. It's definitely geared towards people who are like in the thick of raising kids.
In some of the topics that you would have on here that you have right now, you have an article on why boys are underperforming in school, which is like really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, like a lot of research-based stuff about school system or about education systems and the way, very interesting.
Yeah, we noticed a while back at the school I'm the superintendent of. We have like Bear's about to graduate, and his class. I think your class is it 70% male? The class before you was 75%. Shep's class was 90% male. So we were trying to figure out why are all these boys coming to our school? Like why is and part of the reason was because some of the different things that we were doing at the school, boys were able to be a little bit more successful, and overall they're not doing great. And so that's really a reflection of just kind of the trial and error of the last 12 years trying to figure out how to get these guys through the school system. But we've got a bunch of girls right behind them now.
So you've got an article here about meat.
Yeah, so it's not just about like social issues, but meat's kind of a controversial topic right now. A lot of people are talking about, that it's killing the planet and it's not good for you, and that's not true.
Got some book reviews on here.
Got some book reviews. Yeah. So there's three types of articles. There's the perspectives, which are the deep dives. There's short form stuff for just families trying to like get through the week. If you look, there's a section called Home and Garden. It may eventually be split up into two sections, but it's assuming that most families don't have time to every day read a long article, but also might want some helpful, constructive tips for doing things like we've done it, like with eating kind of healthy and wholesome. It kind of takes a little bit of time.
The big five.
You can read about that in the article or listen on Clay's podcast about the big five. But if you're trying to do that, it's hard. And it's especially hard if you have a job and you don't like devote your life to milling your own wheat, because, some people do, but we didn't. And so it's just kind of like practical tips. And that's usually like punchy lists. That's mainly what you'll find in that section.
Is there a section on there for me?
Would you like to co-author some stuff, Clay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, give me some examples of
bulldozer
things.
Section.
Bulldozer section, Farrier.
Yeah.
I feel like that's relevant to most people
Anthony's
raising a
on
family.
track.
Yeah.
Well, so that's the newcomefarm.com.
thenewcomefarm.com.
That's good. I like it.
I love it.
Bear, you finished up your auction bow?
Yep. I've got a few little details left, but I'm right now shooting it and
Breaking it in.
just making sure
what's
it's good.
What's it made of? Like, tell
It's
me.
made of
everything.
hop-horn beam, which is like it's not a
You
very
know
big
that
tree.
wood,
I do.
Anthony?
Yep.
They have that down in Mississippi?
They do, yeah. Pretty common.
Yeah, I've never even heard of it until I got this stave, but hop horn beam, and it's got water buffalo, horn, tip overlays, so like
Yep.
where the string wraps around the
Yep.
nocks.
Are those native to Arkansas?
Bear had to
Invasive.
travel to Australia.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
It's got coon hide arrow rest on it, beaver silencers, white oak handle. It's 45 pounds at 28 inches.
It's a good looking bow. So
Yeah.
we're
It is
going to
good-looking.
ship that out real soon to the auction winner. It wasn't finished. Like he started it like right when we put it up for auction.
Yep.
So guy's going to get that bow.
Yeah,
Hey.
one of the common woods that was used back by the Native Americans was Osage orange. So
Yeah.
the
Yep.
next
That-
one you can
That's
make
what
up.
That's
the
where
little
she
puppy
got her
dog's
name.
There you
named
go.
after.
Very nice.
Yep.
Yeah. Now do y'all have Osage down in South Mississippi?
Most of the state, yeah.
Really? Okay. Yeah. We have it here too, but it's kind of it feels like it's on the edge of its range because there's directions you can go from here where there's not a lot of it. But yeah, we have
Right.
some Osage orange. Yep.
Bear John is also about to graduate high school. He's a week
Yep.
away from graduating, and he has spent the last quarter of his school experience has been a little non-traditional. Bear saved up when you at the beginning of the year when they publish the parent handbooks and the student handbooks, and they say, if you miss more than this amount, you will be reported truant. What Bear did is he said, okay, so that's the amount I can miss for turkey season.
He's got an Excel spreadsheet
I
where
love
he's
it.
tracking his time.
And he
very
comes
smart.
out of the woods for this is the time of year where there's a lot of senior banquets or presentations or things like that. So he has spent the last month basically living in the woods, coming out for class. He's got a lighter schedule, and he's taken some community college classes as well. So he'll come out and do his online classes for a little bit, and then retreat back into the woods, come out for a presentation, and
How's
then
it been,
I
Bear?
think that's how
How's
John
it
the
been?
Baptist did it too.
Yeah.
Do you
been
recommend
eating
this in the
cicadas?
future?
He's in
Cicada hat.
Speaking
of
of
them out
which,
there.
let's come back to cicadas here.
Well,
Oh,
I know they're
Bear can talk
coming
about
out.
it.
Yeah, it's all the rave
But,
cicadas.
but
yeah.
they're
you could
people
call
are
that
cooking-
dog.
People are cooking with cicadas. Have you heard this?
I read an article yesterday.
in New York Times.
Yes, definitely not
Yep.
something I'm interested in.
They say
but
it's related to shrimp. They say you
No
cook
way.
it like you can
Crawdads.
cook
John
shrimp.
the Baptist had it figured out the whole time.
He did,
did.
man.
He knew what was
Yep.
up.
Huh.
I've had a cricket bar before, like a energy bar made out
Oh.
of crickets.
I thought you meant like a
It wasn't
cricket bar,
great.
like all these crickets sitting around drinking.
Yeah, no.
Cricket bar.
Oh, I know. It wasn't great. But anyway, so Bear's had a pretty adventurous. Brought home a turkey.
Yep.
A big turkey.
Yep.
Big one. Anthony, how long have you been the bear program coordinator down
No,
there?
leader.
Leader.
Yeah, tomato. So I joined the agency in 2015 and then went over to the bear stuff back in the early parts of 2023. And so it's been just over a year now.
Did you go to school in Mississippi?
I did, yeah.
go
Mississippi
to
State University.
I knew you went to Mississippi State.
And then I
I've
actually
learned a little bit about being in Mississippi, about the nuanced difference between Mississippi State and Mississippi.
Mhm.
Or what's the school up north?
So it's probably one of the most bitter rivalries in the southeastern United States.
Yeah.
Top 5 in the country, probably.
Yeah.
So it's
You
one
won't
of
even
those
say the
that's-
name?
It's well, we had a football coach that actually wouldn't. He just called it the school up north. But
Wow.
yeah, it's
So not
University of
nuanced.
Mississippi.
No.
Yeah, Ole
But
Miss.
it's Ole Miss. Ole Miss.
Very stark.
That's what I was.
Very clear cut.
Yeah.
That's what I was reaching for.
You're either one or the other. No in
Yeah.
between.
Yeah.
we had
well,
a coach go to Ole Miss.
I won't name any names, but somebody gave me gave me a lot of insight in how you could pick out of a room who went to Mississippi State and who went to Ole Miss.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the wildlife department, in that profession, Mississippi State has one of the most respected
It's an
wildlife
ag school.
programs.
It's
yeah,
an ag
it's an
school.
ag engineering, and then there's wildlife kind of mixed in with that. And so, if you're going to be basically the kind of the stereotype is if you're going to be, a doctor, a lawyer, golf player, that kind of thing, good Ole Miss. And then if you're going to be, one of those that's a farmer, engineer, hunter, agriculture, that kind of crowd, that's more of a Mississippi State thing.
Go to Mississippi State.
Oh,
I want to know that on the Bear Grease podcast that we are equal opportunity.
Equal opportunity Mississippi.
Mississippi College. So,
Yeah.
nothing against Ole Miss.
Mhm.
but you went to Mississippi State.
I did.
So you got a degree in wildlife biology then?
Yeah, wildlife and fishery science, and then went to University of Louisiana at Monroe for my master's.
Okay. What'd you study in your master's?
So
cicadas?
No, I actually studied wild hogs. We were doing a research project in southeastern Louisiana, like kind of southwest of Houma, in Terrebonne Parish, and so we did some aerial transects down there and looked at some remote sensing stuff. And so when I first got hired on, that was the position that I went into, was as the nuisance species biologist.
Okay.
So I did wild hog work there for, essentially my whole career, except for this last year. And then our bear guy retired in November of 22, and then I was able to come over to the bear program after that.
Let me go back to your master's on hogs. What would the abstract on an academic paper that you'd have written about hogs say about your research? Like, what did you learn?
So essentially what the main reason for the project was to look at, number one, was it feasible to run aerial transects? And then
what's that? I don't know what that means.
Is.
Okay, so basically we got in a helicopter and flew straight lines in a grid pattern across the study area. And we had onboard avionics that would actually trace out the hog damage into a polygon. And then, of course, with that polygon, then you could calculate the area and then extrapolate what the hog damage might be over that entire study area.
Oh, so you just taking a sampling of hog damage and then extrapolating it out to try to understand how much damage hogs are doing.
Yeah.
Kind of based on like habitat that was similar.
Yeah, and then we kind of took that a step further and also looked at remote sensing. So there's a lot of remote sensing software out there. You can get satellite imagery, and then you're essentially training that program to pick out what you deem as, in this case, hog damage, or it could be any feature.
Oh.
And then it takes those values, and based on what you've taught it, it will spit out an estimation of how much hog damage is in that area, and then you compare the two. And so kind of the synopsis of it was the remote sensing part of it, there was too much. You couldn't account for the texture in the ground. So you could account for the colors and the shading and that kind of stuff, but it would often get it, confused with things like mud flats.
Oh.
So, from a satellite imagery, what's the difference between a mud flat and
a wallow,
disturbed soil from hogs? There's not much other than the texturing. And so, clouds, shadows from clouds and that kind of thing would interfere. So it was kind of an imperfect thing, and there is some possibility.
It didn't work great.
It didn't work great. So the remote sensing would always overestimate the amount of damage there, simply because it would factor in all that other stuff and add it to, and kind of artificially inflate that number.
But the other transection, what'd you call it?
The transects.
That was better?
It was better, yeah. Because essentially, if you run your transects correctly, you're going to get a pretty good sample of, a pretty good representation of what that study area looks like. And then you can take that and, of course, nothing's perfect, but you're going to get a pretty good idea.
Well, this really makes me think of when we shift to bears, the study Steve Ranella talked about on the live tour of how you can correlate Bigfoot sightings and black bear populations. And I'd be interested in how that works in Mississippi.
Yeah, Josh and I were actually talking about that.
Yeah. Apparently, there's some real research about correlating what people in a region think about Bigfoot and extrapolating that out into their black bear populations. And there's some pretty strong correlations. And basically, it has to do with habitat, like wherever you can't see very far.
Wherever a bear wants to be, a Sasquatch wants to be.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Pretty interesting study. So you've been the bear lead for just like less than 2 years.
Yep.
Right on.
Yeah, pretty new.
So describe. Do you think most people would be surprised to learn that there are bears in Mississippi?
Most people are, I say most. A lot of people are still surprised to learn that.
Like in Mississippi?
In Mississippi, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that really struck me whenever I first kind of took the program over. And, people don't realize we've been doing bear research in Mississippi for 20 years now. The bear program kind of went from the museum where it was that deals with a lot of the kind of endangered species and, reptiles, amphibians, that kind of thing. And then when it went over to wildlife in 2002, and it was under the Wildlife and Fisheries umbrella, we continued that research on, and we've been doing research, collaring, and genetic analysis and all that for 20 years in the state. And I would say a pretty good not majority, but pretty good percentage of the population don't know that we have black bears in the state at all.
Right. So the big story of Mississippi bears, which a lot of people that would have listened to our Holt Collier series we did about 2 Septembers ago,
Yeah.
you know, in the late 1800s, much of the Mississippi Delta would have been a wilderness in a way until the railroads came in, big swamps, and naturally very productive bear habitat. I mean, some of the as productive as anywhere in the country really would have been the southeastern part of the United States. So
Well, I mean, if you're going to take the president of the United States hunting somewhere, it better be a pretty good spot.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
that kind of speaks to the quality of hunting, probably more than anything else.
Yeah.
That was the spot that was selected right there in Mississippi.
Yeah. And so Bear Grease folks would remember the Holt Collier
Mhm.
story. And where I went with Anthony on a den study back in March was, I don't know, I can't remember the exact location, but it was within 20, 30 miles of where
Yeah.
Holt and Theodore Roosevelt would have hunted bear in 1902, I think.
1902, yep. Just up
Yeah.
the road. Probably, yeah, you're right. Probably 15 miles or so. Yeah.
And then after Roosevelt left, the bear story turns pretty
Bleak.
bleak because bears were basically extirpated from the state. Do you have a sense of, were there ever 0 bears in Mississippi?
They were never completely extirpated. No.
Okay.
And so that's one kind of misnomer that's out there. People
Right.
think that they were none, and then they were restocked, and now there's bears. And now it did get down very low. I think the lowest estimation was somewhere around a dozen. Like, it was
Oh.
extremely low,
Wow.
but it was never 0.
Where were those bears at?
Right there along the river.
On the river.
Yeah.
So the Mississippi River corridor, and we've done a lot of stuff
Mhm.
on it. It's like a pretty wild corridor right along the river because you can't build on the river because of flooding. So they have now, since the turn of the century, there's been levees,
Right.
but inside the levees you basically can't build. So it's maintained quite a bit of its wildness, though it's not like there's not people in there. There are, but that's where the bears held strong, was like right on the Mississippi River,
Yeah. The Batcher land.
Batcher land.
That's
So
the land
in the
inside
genetic
levees.
studies of bears in Mississippi, are you able to, what have they learned about the genetics? Because are the bears, well, I could put words on the table, but I want to hear you. Where they come from?
So, like I said, we had that small remnant population, and when you have any small population like that with few individuals, you also have very few, or a small amount of genetic diversity,
Right.
and that can be a problem in reproduction. You can have inbreeding. You can have all kinds of maladies and reproductive problems as a result.
Yeah.
And so, what Arkansas and Louisiana did back in those times to supplement the Louisiana black bear population was to bring in American black bears from Minnesota.
Hmm.
And so when that restocking effort occurred there, it was not only to bolster the numbers, but it was also to increase genetic diversity. They did the same thing with white-tailed deer in the state. I think there was Mexico, Wisconsin, several other states that locations that they brought animals in to make sure that they weren't make sure they were bringing the most diverse genetics in
Right.
to supplement that population as they could to try to avoid those problems.
Did climate have an impact on bringing the bears from, where'd you say, Minnesota?
Yeah, I don't know. So there were some places where the introductions went really well,
Uh-huh.
and the bears seemed to thrive, and you can still see, those genetic influences. And there are some that it was pretty much a failure.
Really?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, did Mississippi ever bring in any bears though?
Mississippi tried one time in the night. It was either 34 or 35, and it was the notes that I have is said it was marked as a failure. Apparently, there was a pretty few 5 or less that were actually
Where'd
brought
they
in.
get them?
I would assume it was somewhere up north, but I
Okay.
don't know that for sure.
Yeah. So in the 30s. So the Arkansas story was in the between like 54 and the early 60s. They brought in these 254 bears. So you're saying that reintroduction is what is influenced Mississippi.
Yeah, so
Because those bears are crossing the river.
right. So essentially, like the big population sources that you have that our state has seen an influx of, the White River Refuge around right there in kind of southeast Arkansas.
Yeah.
You've got Tensall National Wildlife Refuge, which is a super dense population there and those surrounding areas. And then parts of southwest Mississippi, just across the state line, like Tunica Hills, WMA, that area. Atchafalaya Basin, and then you also have a small population in Mobile, in the Mobile Basin in Alabama. And so a lot of our southeastern or southeast Mississippi bears have kind of influx from
So
there.
there's bears coming from the east coming into Mississippi.
Not to the extent from the west, because
Right.
that population is not growing nearly as fast, and it's not as big of a population source, but there is some influx there, yeah.
Did they ever reintroduce bears into Louisiana? Or is that all from migration of this core? So what's cool to me is that well, when you look at habitat, the public lands and stuff here in Arkansas have been this like harbor for our bears. And essentially they turned them loose, and this stronghold is now, bears going into southern Missouri, which now has a bear season in southern Missouri.
Mhm.
They're coming into eastern Oklahoma, which now has a bear season. Is that where Louisiana got their bears? Is from migration of our bears south? Or did they bring them in?
I think they did also bring them in, but I don't think Louisiana got down to the same level that we did as far as like their lowest point of their population.
So they always had some bears?
Yeah, so I think they were able to bolster that, but they didn't get nearly to the point that we did to have to supplement.
And
so
Mississippi
they were in a lot
doesn't.
better shape.
Mississippi doesn't have a bear season.
No, they're
And-
still a state protected species right
And
now.
how long has it been since they've had a season?
So I know the agency, Mississippi Wildlife Fisheries and Parks, then the Mississippi Game and Fish Commission, was actually formed in 1932. And so I would imagine it was sometime.
So it's been, gosh, near 100 years since they've had a season.
So how many, I asked you this before, but how many bears do you think are in Mississippi at any given time?
I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, biologists hate questions like that. Myron
really
Means,
do.
Specifically the
if I
number.
could tie Myron Means'
Yeah,
hands
he would
behind
be
his
like,
back on a chair
Name, rank, and serial number, and that's it.
and like poke him in the chest, how many bears are in Arkansas? He'd be like, well, I don't know. Quit messing around with me. How many bears are in Arkansas? Just say a number.
Yeah. The problem with Mississippi is we have an estimation that is about 15 years old. That's the most current population estimate that we have. And so
After he says all this, I'll tell you how many bears are in Mississippi. Go ahead.
Sounds good.
I'm waiting. I'm
Please
excited
count.
about this. Nobody wants to know more than me, and I cannot
Yeah,
tell you how.
keep the info coming. I'll let you know.
I cannot tell you how much I'm looking forward to actually having an estimate, because when you talk to people, regardless of how versed they are in the subject, that's what they want to know. How many
Yeah,
bears do we have?
Right.
But so that's our old estimation, and the new estimation that we're going to have, I'm hoping, is going to be in the next year and a half. We've got we're collecting a lot of genetics, and we've got a lot of collars out right now. We're trapping a lot of bears, and that's a multi-state project too. And so we'll have a pretty good idea of like a good, solid, reliable number. And then, another question that people have, and I may be jumping the gun a little bit, but will Mississippi?
He's evading the
Yeah, he
question.
didn't answer.
Yeah, he's really
trying
good
to
at
move
it.
on.
Can I ask you?
Snatch me right back. Here we go.
Remember what you were going to say about the next thing you wanted to talk about. So the population study that's going on right now. Describe how that works.
So there's been different sections of the state that have been chosen to do bear hair snares.
Yeah.
So essentially what that is you've got a couple strands of barbed wire, usually around trees and, in the study area, bait in the middle, some kind of, scent attractant or some type of, donuts are used pretty commonly. And the idea is to get the bear to navigate that barbed wire into the baited area and snag a small piece of hair as he or she does it, so that we can then get that genetic information. And then once you do that on a landscape wide level, you start to get an idea of what the density might be. you start to get an idea of, what type of genetic influences that bear has had. So, what areas that bear might have come from as far as a source population.
Yeah.
And you can really start to put the puzzle pieces together of, what that population looks like.
So from hair collected and understanding of where all this stuff came from, you can like triangulate and come to get a number of like, okay, we've got this much habitat, we had this many hair snares, this is what the genetics say, and you can like using some of these data points come up with an estimate.
Yeah, some of the wizardry when you get really into the weeds like that, we rely on Mississippi State University. That's been kind of a
Let them know if they need any help with that. I'd be glad to help.
Yeah, I'll call them. But anyway, MSU, we've worked with them for years and years on studying every critter that there is in Mississippi, and when it comes to actually building the models and analyzing the data, and really to a large extent collecting the data as well. We've always had a really good relationship with them, and so like when it comes to the nuts and bolts of it, that's their department. So
yeah,
I can't get too far into the weeds because I'll start talking over my head.
Awesome.
Clay's unconventional, but it works.
That's right.
Yeah. Now the 15-year-old, just to give a baseline number, the 15-year-old estimate is like a couple hundred bears.
150 to 300 is the old estimate.
150 to 300 bears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the estimate in Arkansas?
That
they won't give
$6,000
you?
and $7,000.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a huge difference.
So do you think that
Yeah.
the estimate is higher or lower?
I think it's way higher now. Yeah.
Do you think
And
it's close to Arkansas's?
No, I don't think it's close to Arkansas's.
It's all based on habitat, just like the amount of suitable bear habitat. So
Yeah.
there's places that are just going to have, like the carrying capacity is just going to be less.
And is
Yeah.
ours, do we have so much more habitat because of the mountains?
Well,
Because I don't think Mississippi would be any less
Hilly?
rural than we would be. I mean,
it's not about rural. It's about, I mean, bears typically, well, like where these bears are is like ag land. Like there's huge
Oh,
chunks
okay.
of the map
Mhm.
that are monoculture, just ag, which is basically not good bear
Suitable,
habitat. I mean,
right.
they might munch on the fringes of some soybean fields or something, but it is not going to hold bears. So when you looked at aerial maps and you see these corridors along rivers
Yeah.
and these big blocks that are, am I right? Like
Yeah,
these
yeah.
big blocks of timber basically is what
Yeah.
a bear needs.
Yeah, that's what you're looking for. And a lot of those blocks of timber in the Delta and along the Mississippi River that's why they've been such a stronghold, is because they've got everything that a bear wants. And they're, as similar as what that ideal habitat was 100 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've still got a lot of old growth timber. You still got a lot of trees for denning and all that.
Well, yeah, that den study you guys did, the sow was in a tree.
Yeah.
Up in a hollowed tree.
But before I want to talk specifically about that, before we do though, talking about bear numbers, man. So we were in California just this last week. California just came out with a new study, and they think that there are between 65 and 75,000 bears in California.
Oh my
Whoa.
goodness.
I mean,
Are
yeah,
they protected in California?
No,
Can you
they're-
hunt bear?
You can hunt bears, but they've basically gutted the management mechanisms in California. 7-8 years ago, they banned hunting with hounds. They used to have a spring
Oh,
season. They
wow.
banned that. The political climate out there obviously is not pro wildlife management through hunting, but
Is that a concern?
massive.
Okay.
It's eroding the foundations of the North American model of wildlife conservation. I mean,
Wow.
for people to basically be like, hey, we don't want to manage them in that way. And so anyway, but just to put it in perspective, it
That's
feels like
crazy.
a lot of bears, I mean, to say there's, maybe 500 or 600 bears in Mississippi sounds incredible. It's like awesome. They're coming back. This is a
Right.
massive success.
Mhm.
To
And then to
60 or
go, whoa, there's
70,000.
6,500 bears in Arkansas. Holy smokes, that's incredible. And then California.
So is that the most bear dense?
I
state?
think they would. I mean, I'm pretty sure that California has more black bears than any state in the country.
Wow.
Now, the state of Maine, they believe has between like it's been a couple years, but
yeah,
you know,
Maine was the
between
other one that I wondered
like
about.
30 and 40,000 bears
wow.
in Maine. You know, like Montana has like 25,000 bears. Washington State's going to have around 30,000 bears.
Wow.
The Canadian provinces, all the Canadian provinces have just like incredible bear numbers. So there's roughly, some people, I've heard it said 1 million, but actually in the research they say there's between 750,000 and 917,000 bears in North America.
North America.
But I mean, you know, knowing what I know, I think they're a little low.
You know,
I want to become the guy that just makes up numbers.
Yeah.
It's great.
I think
But
you're
no,
there. I think
But
you're
when
good.
you start adding up all the little pieces, you see how you get close to 1 million bears.
Yeah.
You know, in the state. Alaska, you know what? Alaska may have more black bears than California. I think they say there may be 100,000 black bears in Alaska.
Yeah, that would make sense.
And it's just sheer
I mean,
volume
yeah.
of
And
land.
so the numbers you're talking about are all black bears.
Black bears, just black bears.
Okay.
Yeah, because you can't hunt brown bears.
California is the bear state.
In
is
Alaska,
it
you
not?
can.
Well, but not in
the-
California,
the,
right?
The
Golden bear state.
California, the state animal of California is a grizzly bear,
Okay.
but then there's no grizzly bears there. Yeah,
That tracks.
yeah, they extirpated
About
them. Yeah, sad story. No, man, the whole I may be working on a little project about this, but you know, the story of black bear in North America is fascinating.
It is.
And a massive success. And I think a story like Mississippi's is a pinnacle. It's like a crown jewel of the story.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even though it's a small population, it's significant, you know.
Very much so. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm truly humbled to be in the position that I'm in now, because it's pretty likely that, you know, during my career, if I work all the way to retirement, that I'll oversee the implementation of the first bears hunting season
Yeah.
in Mississippi since the days of Teddy Roosevelt. You know,
Yeah.
like, it's just, if that's not the conservation dream, I don't know what is. You
Yeah.
know, and there's
Yep.
a lot of people that don't like the idea of bear hunting. It's one of those that's kind of, you've got people that don't like hunting, and then you got people that don't like bear hunting, and that's not always the same people.
Mhm.
I've come to find out. But you know, I tell people it's the same. You were talking about the North American wildlife model, the white-tailed deer, the eastern wild turkey, the American alligator more recently in Mississippi. All of those, and then, you know, what we hope to be the black bear too, all of those have followed that same trajectory through conservation dollars, through regulations, through the money that the American hunter has put into the system to bring a species from the brink of extinction up until something that's so ubiquitous that we don't even consider it anymore. Like, we don't even think about a white-tailed deer as being
Yeah.
a conservation success story, and it is.
Yeah.
It's a huge one. Every one of them are.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting to think about. It's such a hard sell to think about, like, what you're doing and bringing this bear back, and how a hunting season would actually be a sign that it was a massive
Yep.
success.
Exactly.
You know, and how do you think people will respond in Mississippi? I mean, you know, who knows how many years down the road? It's a pretty long ways out, I would guess. But you know, if there was a limited season there, kind of like they're doing in Louisiana, where you know, there's like this year, this fall, this again, massive conservation success.
Yep.
This year, first year in Louisiana, that they're going to have a very limited season. They're going to kill like 10
It's like
bears.
10
Is
10
that- am I
tags.
right?
It's 10, yeah.
And it's what we saw. We talked a little bit about this, but what I observed anecdotally in Arkansas, having gone through Arkansas's transition to having a bear season that really gave people a chance. In 2001, we allowed baiting on private land for archery hunting. And essentially, that was kind of the start of Arkansas's bear hunting really being accessible to people. Though our season started in 1980 officially, for 20 years it was pretty hard to kill a bear, and few people did, and fewer people did it on purpose. But what I saw when people started hunting them is that it it took some time, but all of a sudden they started having real value because the people had a say and had a incentive to want bears to thrive. But at first, people didn't really know how to handle it. Like, people didn't know that bear meat was good. Like,
Right.
cultural memory is pretty finicky. Like, for 80 years, we essentially didn't have very many bears in this state. And my dad, my grandfather, and my great grandfather had no bear hunting in their cultural memory. And so when we showed up and all of a sudden started killing bears, it was like, what do you do with this? Why is this valuable? This is this is not something we're used to. And then it takes like a generation. Like, Bear has grown up knowing nothing but that bears are like the crown jewel of this place, And so it's really interesting because, like going to Mississippi and seeing the deep, rich history that you guys have in bear hunting. And then the idea that there would be this like 100-year absence of that and then reintroducing it. What do you think's what's it going to be like?
Well, so the good thing about Mississippi is there's a really strong hunting culture.
Yeah.
And there always has been. And like, as far as the social and kind of political climate, I don't think we would have the same problems that a California, for instance, or a
Right.
Florida would have
in
trying to implement a season. And so from that perspective, I feel pretty good about it. And there seems to be kind of two attitudes about black bears in Mississippi. If people have formed an opinion, it usually falls into one of two categories. It's either, oh my gosh, bears are awesome. We want them everywhere. We want to see them thrive. We love bears just categorically, we love bears. Or it's, we categorically hate bears because they tear up my feeders. They eat the seats off my four-wheelers, and they get into stuff and they tear everything up, and we don't like them. They're no good for anything.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do, and I think we're in a kind of a unique spot to do it, is there's a large majority of people out there in Mississippi that A, may not even know we have black bears in the state, but B, don't really have a solid opinion formed about what having black bears means and like an attitude toward the animal itself.
Right.
And so I think, a lot of other animals, people have their opinions about them, and that's pretty much it. But in this, I think we have kind of a unique opportunity where we can preemptively, put out some education there and tell people, look, they're not the cartoon characters that you've seen on the Disney movies, and they're also not the, mindless things that are going to eat your kids and dogs. They're right there in between. Here's how you live with bears. Here's some educational things, and here's how we're going to transition into this, because, people want, we want people to understand kind of how to make those adjustments before it actually ends up right there in their, on their back porch. So to speak.
Yeah. I think I like what you're saying is you're already kind of, you're training the people in a way to understand how to have them. Yeah. When I first started bear hunting, there really was a vermin mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Before you give people access to an animal, it's a vermin mentality, because it's like, what good does a bear do me?
Right.
And I think that's a lot of the sentiment down there. Some of the big landowners is there's some areas that have a lot of bears in Mississippi.
Oh yeah.
Like, where guys are seeing bears like almost every time they go deer hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right?
Yep.
I mean,
Absolutely.
not everywhere, but there are camps down there where it's just like, oh gosh, well, of course I'm going to see a bear.
Right.
And where there's no reason for that landowner to no incentive for him to want that bear there, where if you could every couple of years take one, have some bear meat and some bear fat and a bear rug, and all of a sudden there's this cultural value added to the animal.
Yeah.
Well,
and going back to that vermin mentality, there's also a pretty strong contingency of people, I think, that their understanding is, if we could only get a bear season, then all these nuisance problems would go away. Like, all this would just be solved because we've got a season now. And, the fact of the matter is, that's not the reason that season is going into place to begin with. The reason for that is to provide opportunity to the landowner, and is to provide a mechanism for us to accomplish the goals of managing that species. And, is it possible that it's going to reduce conflict in certain areas? Sure. But that's not the reason that we're putting this all together. And so I think a lot of people kind of get that, conflated in their minds as like, okay, if we could only get to this point, then all these problems are going to go away. And like I said, that's why this education is so important, is because, this is, as long as we're going to have bears, you're going to have to know about how to live with them.
Yeah. So this week is Bear Week.
Yeah.
In Mississippi.
Oh, whoa.
So you're are y'all what are you doing anything, or is it just kind of like you're just talking about it online, social media?
Yeah, so it was kind of organic. It came about last year for the first time, and we're told in our bureau, if you've got stuff, pictures, videos, anything like that you can send to our social media people, they'll put that stuff out there. They're really good at just creating things out of the content that we give them. And last year, right after den season was over, we had a lot of content, and we had, pictures, videos, and that kind of stuff. And the comment was made, hey, well, we've got enough stuff here to do an entire week. I was like, well, why don't we just do an entire week? And so Bear Week was kind of formed, organically. We threw everything together and put it out. It was a really big success. This year we were able to kind of, steer that in a more organized direction and actually add some structure to it and figure out kind of the direction we want it to take. And essentially what it is, highlighting the research that we're doing in the state, some general knowledge about black bears, and really overall just to raise awareness of people. It's on Facebook and Instagram. It's on Mississippi Wildlife and Fisheries Facebook page.
What's your main Facebook page that you created?
So the Facebook page that I created, that was on the end of Bear Week last year. So that was April the 2nd, I think, was when the group was created.
What's it called? So people
it's
can
called
check it
Mississippi Black Bears.
Mississippi Black Bears.
Yeah, it's got a blue background and then a yellow picture of a bear crossing sign.
It's really neat. He posts all the time, like real time stuff when he's out catching bears and when people send
really
him
cool.
pictures of bears and different stuff. So he's done a good job with that.
Yeah. So the official thing that we tell people to report sightings is mdwfp.com, go to the black bear program page, and there's an option there to report a black bear sighting. It asks for a lot of information. Some people that are not as computer savvy or don't want to go through that, find it to be a hassle. The thought was, well, if there's a Facebook page, everybody wants you to see their game camera pictures. And so the thought was that they could just pluck it off their phone, put it on the Facebook, and that may be a sighting that we don't capture otherwise. And so it was to kind of capture, the stuff that was falling through the cracks that people didn't want to actually report via the website.
Yeah.
And as it progressed, it turned more into, it did service that as a mechanism and still does. But I also found more and more utility with it because at the time we were moving into Southwest Mississippi to try to do a lot of trapping and collaring. We had 10 plus collars to put out last year. And, in the Delta, kind of that breadbasket area, we had a lot of contacts. We had a lot of people that we've always worked with. And then once we moved outside of that, we were kind of starting from scratch again. And so that social media platform was able to fill the gaps. And when people would, put a sighting on there, again, most of the time it's game camera pictures. So I can look at the time and date. I can contact that person via Messenger. And I gained access to probably 95% of the properties that I was on over the past summer through the Facebook page.
Wow.
Oh, that's neat.
And so it's, and then, as it's progressed, I've also put out some stuff about our research. Here's some bears that we're collaring. Here's some stuff that we're doing. And then kind of a continuation of that, with Bear Week, we're also sharing all that content on there as well.
Yeah. So I want to talk about bears in trees. That's a unique thing for the flood-prone regions of the Southeast. Is that you guys bears, and the reason I'm saying this is I put a video up on my Instagram. I think it got 1 million views, didn't it?
I think so. Yeah. I think Brent's got like 1.5 million. Yours got 1 million. And there's been several others that were really big.
So basically, Christy,
Yes,
the bears
I'm glad
and
you get to be this person this week.
and Misty, the flood-prone regions, these bears are denning in these ancient cypress trees that have big cavities. So when I was with Anthony,
How tall are these trees? Give me some context.
The one that we did when Clay and Brent came out was about 50 feet.
Wow.
Oh my gosh,
That
are you
was-
kidding me?
And how
No,
big is
yeah.
a cavity? Like when you.
It depends. So as the tree grows, they'll have certain spots that kind of rot out, maybe a branch that broke off or whatever, and it leaves a void there. And so the tree is alive and well, but those cavities start to form. And sometimes it's just kind of a shallow depression that's really not much to it. Sometimes that cavity will go all the way through the trunk of the tree, and the bear will literally be on the ground inside the tree.
But he's
Wow.
accessing a hole
Way up high.
like way up
Right.
high.
So yeah, on some of them you'll have to climb 40 feet to get to the cavity opening, and then climb 40 feet all the way back down to get to the bear inside the tree.
Wow.
And you're doing that.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to get into the cavity of a tree with a bear.
So the bear, the one that I
Okay.
went with him on, so they have to rappel, and they're using the techniques that like an arborist would use. Like if
Uh-huh.
they were going to cut down a tree, so they like throw their ropes up, and then Anthony's got these little climber,
Yeah.
I don't know, this little mechanisms that
Foot
he's able-
ascenders.
foot ascenders.
Yeah.
And so he climbs 50 foot up this tree.
Wow.
And the one I saw, the hole was about, I don't know, twice as big as a 55-gallon drum.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite
One
that
and a
big.
half to 2 times. Yeah. Something
And
like that.
and this tree just kind of like comes up and just has this like open hole at the top, like almost like a cat. Just I don't know. You could
Like
have
it's a
stood.
cylinder.
Yeah, you could have just stood in it and you'd have got rain on your head. And that bear was just denned up like right in that hole.
Mhm.
And so Anthony was peeking over, looking at this bear. And tell us about that one.
So the thing that made that cavity, like every cavity is different, and so sometimes you whenever you first look over that cavity, you have no idea how far down that bear is. And so in
Right.
this particular case, when you look over the ledge, that bear is right there, and you are
Oh.
like from me to Christy to the bear,
Ah,
and so
and 50 feet in the air.
and 50 feet hanging off the rope, yeah.
Tied to a tree.
Yeah, you're probably not as good at
Wow.
You
climbing up
carry
and
a
down as the
pocket knife
bear.
with you so you can just cut yourself loose and just
And then the Jerry Clower just shoot up in here amongst us.
yeah.
But and the problem with that tree was the way it was shaped. I couldn't get, like, I like to get up above the cavity because that way I can see the bear better, I can take a shot better. And the way that tree was shaped, I couldn't. And so I was basically right there even. And so as I would peek over, we're basically face to face. And that was one.
And they're pretty docile right now. Like what?
Well,
Tell me what that. For those of us
Doesn't
who
feel
don't.
that way when you're 50
fully
feet
There's
in
know.
the
a
air.
range of docile.
Okay.
yeah, being subjective.
Okay.
This particular female, this is the second time that she's been in this same tree. She did in the same exact tree last
Okay.
year. And she is not docile. She was very upset that we were there. So one of the first things that I do is I'll screw in the tree spikes to have a platform to stand on so I can kind of move around and
Right.
take a shot and that kind of thing. And
The shot means he's trying to put a
Dart.
dart in her. to-
right, well, yeah,
Yeah.
we dart to
Tranquilizer.
Oh,
anesthetize.
gotcha.
And then,
Uh-huh.
so first we have to figure out where the bear dens. Then we have to figure out how to get into the den. Then we have to figure out if the sow that is supposed to have cubs actually does have cubs. And so all that process happens over the span of a few weeks. But in this particular situation, like whenever I started screwing that first tree spike in, she started huffing and popping her jaws. And it's like she knew I was there, no doubt.
Okay.
And she had, so by the first,
She's like, we've met before.
you again.
Yeah.
You again. So whenever I first peeked over the ledge right there to where she was in view, she had already backed up and she was facing the back of the cavity, or excuse me, her back to the,
Uh-huh.
her
So she could see
facing
you.
me, ears laid back. And as I would peek over, she would swat at me and she would hit the side of the tree
So
in
we're
between me and
on
her.
the ground watching this, and he's like hanging off this tree, and he'll kind of like lean around, and then he'd go, he'd like jump back.
Did she
and
have
you'd hear
cubs?
She didn't have cubs, no.
No.
you'd hear the bear like, you'd hear the bear hit the tree. And, I mean, yeah, it was pretty
Wow.
intense. It was gonna. I was
So do you have
filming,
to get
man.
that
I
bear
was.
out of the tree?
No, so assuming that she had cubs
Okay.
and we had darted her and actually anesthetized her, the next step would have been to get my little workup kit up into the tree. So I'll
Okay.
screw in some kind of pulley. The folks on the ground will pull that up. I start them on supplemental oxygen in the tree. I'll monitor vitals inside the tree, and then we take like I said, assuming she had a litter of cubs,
Right.
we would have taken those. There's little bags that we put them in and lower them down, and they'll work up on the cubs. The measurements, we put pit tags in, we put others, take other measurements, weight and that sort of thing, general health, age and sex, count the cubs, that kind of thing. And after all that's done, all that data is collected, then they'll get her
Bring
back,
the-
get the cubs back up
Right.
the tree, and then we'll put them back in the thing, back in the den, and then we'll give them the reversal drug.
Wow.
Quickly tell me the story about the cub, the orphaned cub.
So when you have some type of problems with abandonment, it's generally that first litter that the sow has. We knew that she was 3 years old because she was actually caught for the first time when she was a yearling. So we knew how old she was. I didn't know for sure whether she was going to have cubs or not. But
And this is a second bear. So we went to this first tree, didn't have a cub, this mean bear, and then we went to this other. This is a different sow.
yep, different
Yeah.
sow. And we had the day before that, we had actually done the den check itself. So we had gotten everything went super well. We had gotten the cub, did all of our stuff, put her back, everything was good. We had gotten back to the camp about an hour later, and we had set up a cell camera on the tree to look at when the sow comes down, like look at emergence dates from our dens. And we saw that the sow had gotten out and left. And to make a long story short, she never did actually come back into the den, into that den tree.
And
Oh.
she had one cub.
She had a single cub, yeah. And it was kind of one of those things where, you don't want to intervene too early, but you also don't want to let it wait
Yeah.
too long and the cub gets dehydrated and there's a lot of other problems that could have arisen. And basically the position that we were in right after y'all left was we had a big storm coming in Friday morning. And you know how hard it was to get back there in
Yeah.
quote unquote dry weather. And it was about to be impossible. So it was either take the cub then or have to
And
wait
Let me,
potentially another week.
as I began to understand it. So when you're doing these den studies, collared sows, and this is something that's very, very understood across the country because almost every state that has bears is going to have some animals collared and do some type of den study. Some percentage of females don't respond well to people coming in and messing with them. And it's
Yeah.
usually the young ones.
Yeah.
Well, and normally, we have a lot of ground dens and they have a lot more chance, obviously, of, getting out of the den and escaping whenever people come to do the checks and they'll come right back. I mean, there's,
So most of the time it's a non-issue. Like
it's
intruding on a sow, tranquilizing her, checking her cubs, and then she wakes up and smells humans and knows something bad, something happened. That, high percentage of sows don't care.
well, I'll put it this way.
This one did.
In the 20 years that we've done bear research in Mississippi and all the dozens or hundreds of den checks that have been performed, I think there's been 2 other situations of abandonment in that whole amount of time. So it is
So this is
extremely
rare.
rare for that to
Yeah,
happen.
right,
Yeah.
right.
And so once we were able to make the decision of like, hey, we need to go ahead and get this cub, the standard procedure that we have is if we have another sow that has cubs, we put them with that. We add the orphan sow to that litter, and almost vast majority of the time, there's no problem. She'll take them and raise them as her own.
Interesting.
And so that's what you did.
That's what we did. So that was on Friday. That was on Thursday night that we went back and got the cub. Gave it puppy formula actually to to keep
So y'all
keep her
kept it
hydrated.
overnight. So what happens? We just went and messed with this mean bear in the morning, and then by that afternoon, Anthony and his team had been watching on cell camera whether this sow had come back, and she hadn't. And so like all day, it's like I heard him talking. It'd be like, man, that sow still isn't back from the den study the day before. And it was like, man, what do we do? What do we do? And all day, Anthony was fretting over, should we go? Is she going to come? And then there's a timestamp on how long a cub will survive without a
Right.
nursing cub.
Mhm.
Will survive without milk. They'll, dehydrate and whatnot. And so that afternoon, me and Brent, we went back with them to see if the sow was there, and she wasn't. And but we heard the cub crying up in the tree, just you know, and
not only that, but with that big storm that came through, that cub would have gotten rained on inside where that den was, and possibly could have gotten hypothermic as well.
Yeah.
So that was another reason why we made the decision to go ahead and get her.
And so you took her that night, kept it was a little male cub, kept him.
It was
overnight.
actually a female.
Was it a female? I was thinking it was a male. Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, so kept her overnight, and then Saturday was when we went down to Wilkinson County, which is southwest Mississippi, Woodville area, and we had a sow down there that had 3 cubs. Come to find out, I knew she had either 2 or 3, and so darted her. Everything went well with that. Introduced the 4th cub, and I recently got a picture from the landowner with the sow and all 4 cubs.
Oh,
Wow,
awesome.
man, that's so
super
great.
cool.
That's cool.
awesome.
Yep.
Can you
So
imagine
that-
that bear waking up? Where'd you come from?
It would be like waking
Wait a
up
minute.
in my
1,
house
2, 3. Wait.
and walking into my house and being like having a new kid.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
Who
All
are
right.
you?
Whatever.
Just
probably
be like,
didn't go-
all right, I'll take care of you.
She probably
Yeah,
didn't go back to
exactly.
sleep after that, just in case.
She was like,
Yeah.
Just to
She's
be
like,
safe,
once
you know?
enough.
Right.
oh, that's so cool. And so did y'all lip tattoo that little guy?
No, we kind of moved away from lip tattoos.
Okay.
But we do put in pit tags, which
Oh,
is
okay.
it's about the size of a grain of rice. It's essentially like a microchip that you would
Oh.
put in dogs and cats.
Oh, yeah.
And we do that to every bear that we
How
have.
long will that
Subcutaneous?
last?
Yeah, it's injected under the skin, and it doesn't have a battery. It's just like a scannable barcode almost.
Oh, so it just
And-
lasts good
Like a dog.
forever.
Yeah, so as long as it's under the skin,
I've got one of
And we
those in
can-
bear.
yeah,
New
and we
one.
can.
He didn't know
We
that.
need one
till
of
now.
those. Yeah, we need one of those.
Fun fact. But any bear that we get back in hand, that's one of the first things that we'll do is scan them for that pit tag,
Oh,
and
okay.
then that way, if we can get that number, then we have a catalog where we can look back and see how many times we've captured that bear. Possibly if it's as a cub, we have a known age, and we've got a good profile of the history of the bear.
Be really interesting to follow that bear's life. That
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
you
absolutely.
essentially saved its life.
Yeah.
Be
What's
cool.
the bear's name?
See, I hesitate to name the bears.
Okay, gotcha.
And that kind of goes
You
back
did,
to
though. Come on.
I didn't. No, that was
While we were there was a lot of potential names being tossed around, but no, I got you.
no, the name that was put out there was Opie.
Oh, how cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like,
We'll put it in quotes.
Opie.
yeah.
I like that name.
Me too.
We had a coon dog named Opie once.
Terrible dog.
Every morning I opened the door and
Wouldn't
it'd
say
bring
it in
like
front of him. But.
every
Yeah.
morning I woke up and it'd bring new treasures. Once there was a dead bird. Once there was a rock. Once like a
Never
deer.
a coon.
Never a
Never a
coon.
coon.
Yeah. Yeah.
But kind of going back to the hunting thing, what I've tried to do was kind of keep it very scientific as far
Yep.
as referring to those bears,
Good
because
call.
people wouldn't really mind if F-34 got harvested in a hunt, but if Opie got shot,
Oh yeah.
Scratch that from
It's
the
like that
records.
bear. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm with. That's good. Yeah.
and so that's one thing that I've kind of tried to change, because the naming bears has been really common, especially in a state where you can. There's not a whole lot that you're working with.
Yeah,
and so
you can identify
You
'em.
can
Right.
identify them, but
Right.
that's one thing that I'm kind of trying to move away from.
That's
yeah,
great.
that's a
Yeah.
good idea.
What are, as we close down here, you trap bears a lot. You've been trapping a lot of bears. What's a big one? What's the biggest one you've trapped?
The biggest one over this past year was 384.
384, big
Yeah.
male.
We caught one 384 and I caught a 381. So they were both one in one in Franklin County and one in Claiborne County.
Do you think there's some big 500 pounders out there?
Yeah. So little foreshadowing in Bear Week, we do have a on Thursday, calling it Thick Thursday, and we're going to have a fat bear like competition, I guess.
Oh, nice.
People can post their bears in Mississippi, which one they think's the biggest, and then we'll select a winner at the end of the week.
That's
Well,
awesome.
fun.
So
Mm.
yeah, I've gotten pictures of some of the Delta that I have no doubt are in the upper 400s at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our biggest on record's 468. That was in Wilkinson County.
Really.
Wow.
Biggins. Well, that's awesome, man. Anything else we hadn't talked about that you want to talk about Mississippi Bears?
I don't know.
We cover a lot of it.
Yeah, we covered a lot of it.
Well, you're welcome to come back up here anytime, man. You could just join in on a render. So
I'd love to, man.
I love seeing passionate people inside of positions like you're in that really love the resource, that are working hard and looking long term down the road. So, man, you're in a great position, and
Appreciate it.
And I think you're doing a great job. So that's awesome, man.
Well, I appreciate the invitation and the platform to kind of get our story out there and public awareness. We have a tracking thing on our website where it's graphed by year of how many bear reports we had over that year. And 2023, there was a 300% increase in the amount of bear reports that we got in the state. Not because there was a 300% increase in bears, but because there were that many more people that were more aware and knew what to do with that information. So it's a huge, this right here is a huge step for raising that awareness and kind of bringing some knowledge about our program.
Yeah, incredible. Any other questions from the team?
No, I loved it.
Yeah.
Also, thanks for the swag.
Yeah.
We got
really
some
pumped
cool
about
shirts. Excellent. Well, I'm excited about the next bear grease that's coming up. It's going to be good. Not going to foreshadow an ounce other than just.
Oh,
It is going to be very good.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, we're all in on this.
Thank you,
Foreshadowing.
Anthony. Thanks for coming up here. And we'll be hearing more about Mississippi Bears.
Cool. Enjoyed it.
First Light has always made the world's best base layers. They are warm, breathable, silent, and odor resistant. But the women's fit and the gear weren't meeting our demands, so we went back to the beginning and rebuilt everything. Re-engineering the gear with the most dedicated female hunters in mind, First Light modernized the fit and added more sizes, colors, and camo patterns. I personally have been testing the women's gear over the last couple of years, from the mountains in Idaho to the plains in Nebraska, and I feel like the fit especially has landed in a much better spot. It's more true to size. It's not as tight and binding in certain areas like a lot of women's fit. All of the pieces, to me, got an all-around upgrade. It's awesome to see. So for yourself or as a gift this Mother's Day, pick up First Light's new women's merino wool and get free shipping on all orders containing women's gear. Available now at FIRSTLITE.com.